Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Andrea Martinez. I work for the Research Software Alliance as the community manager. And I have the privilege to present today some results that we have worked during the year of 2022 to expand some landscape analysis that we did in 2020. So the title of my talk is the Research Software Community Landscape in the Global South. And today's talk is part of the community forum that ReSA is holding once a month. To start about why we did this research, I'd like to tell you what the ReSA mission is. So the Research Software Alliance wants to bring software communities together to collaborate on the advancements of research software. We also want to understand what the landscape is around communities involved in research software. So we did initial exercise in 2020, but most of these communities that we put on the list and we found through our collaborators were mostly located in the Global South. So to extend this analysis, we did a explicit effort in commissioning a report and getting the input from local consultants in the Global South to report back on the communities and different funders that they are aware of. This is now a published report and the DOI is at the end of the page. So feel free to have a look at the report. It's also accompanied by 2 data sets, one for communities and one for funders. I'll present to you the main results first, and then I'll go into some of the results that we found, but I really recommend that you read all the report. It's not too long. It's about 7 pages long with some gaps, highlights, and opportunities that I'll describe to you during this talk. So the report has identified 126 organizations located in the Global South and also 62 funder bodies that support research software in the Global South. For the funders, there are some of them that are located in other parts of the globe, but are also supporting research software in the Global South. Also, I'd like to bring up that the main activities of these communities or initiatives are to connect people, to do training, to facilitate networking, and also support research through different types of grants. Okay, when did this happen? We started by announcing the opportunity for people located in the Global South to become part of this initiative. So we had 12 consultants that were paid and that developed a little summary narrative of the context in their own countries or in the countries that they have experience on. And we could have different countries mapped through this landscape. So the countries that we are presenting results from are not for the whole Global South, but are the countries where the consultants are coming from. And those can be categorized in 3 regions: Africa, South America, and Asia. We have 9 countries in Africa, 4 countries in South America, and 9 countries in Asia. We understand that this is not mapping all of it, so we have an opportunity for people to contribute and extend this list in the future. So today I am presenting the results, but actually I'd like to give my acknowledgement to the main characters of this work, who are the consultants or the data collectors, the ones who provided the information. And so they are listed here. I'm just gonna read their names. And you can also find the full list in the report and then the data sets as well. So I'd like to thank Tul, Stephanie, Anthony, Caleb, Nicolas, Jessica, Saranjit, Jyoti, Renato, Narcisse, Abdullah, and Arslan. Now going through the data set and the collection specifically. So there is one list that we made that was only asking about communities. And we were very flexible in what encompasses a community. So a community needed to have some relevance to research software, but didn't have to be specifically only for research software. So we have encountered different types of communities that you can see listed on the slide. We have 126 regional initiatives that are communities. Some of them are training providers, providing certification, and also we included 8 communities that act not only in the regional setting, but also globally. From the communities that we've seen present in different countries, we can cite different Google developer groups, our ladies groups, with a lot of emphasis in Latin America, grassroots open science communities, so different interests in open science that also touch upon research software. Different carpentries sub-communities. So if you are not aware, the carpentries is a training organization that wants to create a community of researchers that can use more efficient tools as in digital tools. So there's many people who are also related to training in the carpentries communities, and most of them will be also training research software. There's also accredited training providers, and like I said before, they might act regionally or globally. And there's very few, but important to notice, some local and institutional communities as well. So those will be part of the universities. Some of them are at the level of a university or a level of a faculty. For example, statistics. We had a few examples from those faculties in different universities that had research groups interested in developing software. And just a few as well, communities of research software projects. So when a research software involves more and more people, it tends to start a community around it. And then we see they have documentation, and they have people forums where other people can ask questions or have guidelines for contributions as well. Going through the next data set, which is about research software funders. We have identified collectively 62 funders in the Global South, including 16 that are global. And those global mainly come from the US or Europe, but are supporting initiatives in different parts of the world, including the Global South. There's also a substantial number of federal or government funding institutions, and these are more oriented towards innovation in science rather than research software. But research software it's part of innovative research, so that's why it's been cited. And some specific examples were cited that are all mentioned in the highlights as well. And not that many, but also we found some instances of philanthropic funds that you can see in the data set as well. Okay, now I am going to go through a few of the specific examples that the data collectors mentioned, and we've separated into 3 sections. So I'll start with the gaps. I think one gap that was agreed upon many of the collectors in their narratives when they were explaining what they have identified and how they've identified these organizations or communities is they say there's a lack of awareness of the value of RSEs or research software engineers, that provide the value that research software engineers provide to research institutions, and that's the main barrier to engagement. So they have noticed that when this value is recognized, there is more support institutionally for research software engineers. And maybe in those instances is when we see research software engineers groups at the level of a university, for example. Equally agree with the research software culture. It's research software culture change is needed. Many of the data collectors have emphasized this. And I can cite some of the countries that mentioned this: Bangladesh, Chad, Colombia, Ghana, RDC, Kenya, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. They all mention in the narratives that change is needed. So there's the not only expecting to have change, but also they are very proactive in promoting change, which is a gap, but we also see an opportunity there. Another gap that I'd like to mention for this highlight report is that the support to research software has different levels. And for example, one of them or two of them actually cited that research software cannot advance if we don't have the hardware that is required to run that research software. For example, specific licenses to run different libraries to run research software or to build on top of that research software. There was a problem identified in Bangladesh that the licensing is not being prioritized. In Argentina, on the other side, they said that they are developing highly efficient code for high performance computing, but high performance computing is not available throughout the country. So that's also another gap. With regards to training, they said there's a lot of enthusiasm for people to learn how to code, even if they come from different sciences that were not previously involved in programming. So the gap here is that people are jumping in to code without enough training. But the training opportunities should be taken as relevant for academic institutions to really introduce best practices and not just telling people you have to do this without giving them any training. Another gap identified by Francophone countries, specifically in Africa, is that there is a barrier to access to training opportunities and also to funding opportunities. So maybe those are publicly available, but because they are mainly presented in English, the Francophone countries in Africa identified this as a barrier. So if the same grant will be available in another language, maybe more people will be able to apply for those. Similarly, in Saudi Arabia, they stress the importance of enabling non-English speaking communities and researchers with translation efforts, not only for research software, but also for open science. Another gap that I like to mention here is in comparison to our previous report. So our previous report in 2020 had a lot of communities that were interested in software preservation, software citation, career paths, productivity, and research software sustainability as a whole. And those aspects were not clearly identified in this mapping. Next, we have some opportunities. This list can be summarized into national strategic policies to grow data literacy, not only research software development or best practices, and also acquiring funding for software through other types of grants and drivers for community growth. So these are the three opportunities that were cited by different data collectors. In the first one about national strategic policies to grow digital literacy, I'd like to cite two examples from two different countries in the Global South that I thought were very relevant and have a longer term goal. One of them is in Colombia. It's called Mission TIC or ITC, translated to English. This initiative is for Colombian citizens to extend opportunities to improve professional and academic development, including computational skills. And this started this year in 2022 and has 14,000 training places in the country. So this is definitely going to improve digital skills in Colombia. And the people who can apply for this are not only specifically researchers, they can be any citizen from Colombia. The other example around government initiatives that have a very large impact is from Saudi Arabia, and it's called Vision 2030. It's a strategic framework to develop that was developed in 2016, and it's a package of economic and social policies that are designed to free the kingdom from dependence on oil exports in pursuit of knowledge-based economy. So I think they have identified what their strengths are, but they also have identified an opportunity to grow their knowledge as part of their economy. I think this is a great example that other countries can also pursue. I invite you to see other opportunities listed in the report. There's a few more examples worth checking and learning more about. About highlights. Data management plans and open science policies are helping raise the value of RSE. So those two topics have been mentioned many times as drivers of growth. And like I started this presentation by saying that the value of RSEs is the main barrier for actually recognizing this effort and supporting it. So when we have more value, then we'll have more recognition. And those policies are actually helping through this transition. It was also a point to highlight by many of the data collectors that there is need and there's also interest to run active RSE communities. So some of them, some of the data collectors actually are part of the stakeholders that are actually running communities. So they might be a funder, they might be a co-founder of an RSE community in different countries. They might know who are the funders. They might have actually helped with the proposal. So they are very involved. So the interest really exists and it's showing. And it says also that to highlight that there should be more interchange between countries that are more advanced in the recognition of research software engineers and those that are just starting. But those conversations have already started as way of mentoring from different communities. So just to cite some examples here. I'd like to mention the Software Sustainability Institute has a fellows program. One of them this year, for example, is the person who is leading the research software engineer chapter in South Africa. So this person is receiving mentoring from the Software Sustainability Institute mentors, and they are the ones who initiated all of the RSE chapters in the world. So that's a good combination to bring information from the other side and also give from the starting community information to the whole world. There's also a point to highlight that there's some initiatives who have started as a global initiative in Africa. For example, the Pan-African Bioinformatics Networks for Human Heredity and Health in Africa. And the acronym is H3 Africa. This consortium offers genomic data analysis, they offer software development and analysis workflow support. So through this consortium, they have also provided a platform through RSEs. So they can be hired, they can be recognized, they can put their contributions into their CV, and it's growing the value of RSEs in general, but it's also helping grow the community so more people know about them. And this is an starting community. It's called Research Software and Systems Engineers of Africa, RSSE Africa. You can also have links to that through the report. Similar to that, there's other open source communities that are pushing not only best practices, but also open science and the FAIR guiding principles, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and usable. Going through more examples, we have a short section in what the learnings are. And I think every individual can read the report and have different learnings out of it, because there's so many spaces where you can focus your attention and learn from those specific examples. But once you go through the report, I really recommend to read the section on opportunities and highlights, because these are initiatives that could generate a lot of impact. They're already having an impact in their own countries, but translated to another context, they can also be very impactful. And those are, like I mentioned before, the examples of the national strategic policies in Colombia and Saudi Arabia. And they said the value recognition of the cost involved, for example, for $1 they have, they can actually promote the growth for 10 more people. So they train one, but this person is going to be able to help 10 to 100 other people. So this is a significant contribution, not only to scholarship, but it's also an improvement of the recognition of research software engineers and research software itself. And going towards the end of this presentation, I'd like to bring you back and have you see what comes next. What comes next is part of community efforts. So we are opening up both of the data sets. You can see the list, you can go through them. You might find things that want to be updated or corrected, or you might find yourself that you know more information that other community members will really benefit from knowing. So we have opened the two different data collections as a form where you can input more information. And this analysis really is to provide practical ideas, one for governments looking at policy from other governments, or also for funders to understand what better support they can give to the countries listed in this analysis, or in the Global South in general. For example, that gap identified by the Francophone countries, there's a lack of people. It will be interesting to see if funders actually know who is applying from these countries, and if by enabling translation of the proposals, they will have more applicants from countries that don't speak English. Also, to continue the work of the Research Software Alliance to bring communities together, we are asking people not only to provide information, but also you can deepen the analysis, so you can be involved in other research activities, such as the task forces. So task forces are specific programs of the Research Software Alliance with a time frame and with a product in mind. So the landscape analysis done in 2020 was one of the task forces, and maybe some members of this community would like to deepen the analysis in one of the regions cited, or maybe only in communities, or maybe only in funders. And we are here to support those initiatives and give you the space and the tools to collaborate with other people into achieving this goal. And almost the end of it, I would like to acknowledge as well the support from the Wellcome Trust. This was a grant that helped pay for the data collector's time, and and you can see all of the resulting reports and data sets in Zenodo. Also part of the Research Software Alliance community, and you can please download them. The links to the forms to input more information are also available via the links cited in the slides. And that's all from me. Thank you. I'll answer any questions that you might have.